growing up in Vallejo, there was a military, the Mare Island Naval Shipyard was right there. And so I had a paper route that I would go over to, I had my bicycle and I'd meet the guy in the morning and he'd give me the paper, he'd fill my bags up with the paper, and then I'd ride across the bridge to Mare Island Naval Shipyard, and they were building the nuclear submarines at that time. And I was the kind of paper boy that would say, paper, paper, read all about it. You know, Jackson murder goes to trial. And I couldn't even read the headlines a lot of times. So the guy who would drop me the papers off to me would read the headline for me to tell me what it said so that I could stand and say these things. And, you know, that gave me that experience. I've been on the military base, seeing these guys. Some, they would even feed me sometimes. They'd let me into the mess hall, and it was like, wow, look at all of this food, man. They feed you guys great, you know. And so that was part of that upbringing that made me see that as a really positive option for me. They had food. Then, you know, and they ate every day, you know, so that's something that I thought about. But, you know, before I went into the military, again, I had absolutely no idea of what I would do or where I was going to go. I knew that I could work in the fields. You know, my father always prided himself on the fact that he could work and make money in the fields. Not everybody can do that. That is a really hard way to make a living. When I was a kid and I'd be picking tomatoes and stuff and I'd be going like this, and my father would say, "What's wrong with your other hand?" And I'd go, "Nothing." "Then use it. Use both hands." You know, and it was like, oh, okay. You know, and so even to this day, when I'm doing a job or doing something, it's like if I'm just using one hand, it's like my father saying, "Hey, what's wrong with that other hand? Come on, use it." You know, so I guess I was being a survivor is just when you're poor. When I see the homeless out here on the streets all the time, I can see the sadness in them. I can see that they're surviving the best that they can. Linda, my wife, oftentimes says, "Man, we don't have a whole bunch of money, Larry. Why are you giving your money away?" "Hey, baby, because for the grace of God, but for the grace of God, there go I." You know, and I see it. And like I said, when I was a kid, I used to see the homeless and I used to think to myself, is that where I'm going to end up? Is that what's going to happen to me? Am I going to be a homeless person? You know, because there's a lot of them. There was a story by Dick Gregory called Shame. It was a short story. And in that story, he talked about how when he was a young kid, he was in school, grammar school, and they were raising money for some cause. And the teacher asked, you know, who can donate? And he raised his hand and he said, "My father can, we'll donate $1. And this girl stood up in class and said, "You guys can't donate nothing. Your father's a garbage man. You guys are poor." You know, and that was the first time he felt shame about who he was. For me, it was, you know, if you leave your clothes too long in the dryer and they don't dry and then they have this smell, the sour smell to them. Well, I remember I was on my 3rd grade and I was on my way to school. And as I was going, I passed a J.C. Penney's in Vallejo in the window, and I looked in the window and I saw how raggedy I looked, and I could smell how terrible I smelled. And I felt shame. For the first time, I felt like I'm not going to go to school. And I started cutting school. That's the first time I ever cut school. Well, I went down and explored and had a wonderful time. And then, you know, I was like about 2 weeks that I didn't go to school. After the first day, after that, it's just like, I'm not even going to go, you know. And one day, the teacher saw me, Miss Wade, I'll never forget her. She said, Larry, Larry, she called me and I saw her and I thought, oh no, I'm in trouble. She said, why haven't you been coming to school, Larry? I said, oh, I don't know, Miss Wade. And she said, come with me. And she took me to her house, and she lived up behind the school in this nice house. She took me in and she gave me cookies and milk, and she talked really nice to me. And she said, now, I expect to see you in school tomorrow, Larry. I never miss school again. I went to see Mrs. Wade. That's who I wanted to see because she treated me with some love and some compassion. And then the Shane said, do the best you can with what you got. Don't go to school stinking, And after that, there's a few times that I did cut school because of my situation. I didn't have what I needed, and I said, man, I can't go to school today. I can't go like this, and that was part of the shame.